Private companies have just different regulations than federal agencies in terms of being able to make arrests or interfering with anything that occurs on their premises that is deserving of some kind of investigation. Now, how does that affect order oversight within these facilities that are supposed to be prison facilities?
Yeah, the private corrections are not, they do not have arrest powers. Okay, if there's a crime that's committed in the facility, it has to be reported to a local agency and investigated by the local agency. So, in a way, they're just like a security guard in a shopping center or a mall. Okay, so in terms of training, I explained to you earlier today that in the state of Florida, you have, once you are hired, you have 6 months in which to apply for certification as a law enforcement correctional officer. And then you have another 6 months in which to actually become certified. And if after that whole year period you are not certified, you can no longer work in a correctional institution, okay? So what you find on average is there's at least a 50% turnover rate in a private facility, whether at a jail, detention center, or a prison. In general, a public facility only has about 15% turnover rate. So you have much more experienced staff in a public facility. You also have low staff levels in a private facility. So at any one time, you don't have enough staff people in there to make it safe.
Now, wardens who don't have arrest capabilities, how do you deal with that issue if you're really facing inmates who can escape or who are dangerous?
Well, you just have to detain them any way you could.
But have there been instances where there was a need for someone to step in and break up riots or situations of that nature, and
yeah, well,
they didn't have the powers to do that?
Well, that's a good point. Usually when there's an incident, you will have the public authorities coming in to help out. In particular, there was a major riot at a Corrections Corporation of America facility in Colorado where the state actually had to come in and quell what was going on. The warden at that facility, when the incident happened, when it was basically a riot, contacted the state. The gentleman who oversaw the private prisons for the state said, hey, tear gas them. Well, 3 hours later, they hadn't tear gassed them yet because the warden hadn't been able to get the authorization from corporate in Tennessee. Even though the state told him to do it, he takes his orders from corporate, not from the state. So by the time the inmates had pretty much burned the place down, the state agencies had to come in and take over. Needless to say, they had to reimburse the state a couple $100,000 for the use of all the personnel and equipment and everything. So a lot of times you'll find that there are what are called liquidated damages in the contracts. But because of the influence the industry has with the folks that oversee them, a lot of times those liquidated damages aren't even applied. For instance, in Kentucky, the gentleman who was the secretary for their Department of Corrections was a former corporate executive for Corrections Corporation of America. So when there was a major riot at a facility there, and the state had to come in, and you know, your state troopers and everybody else, well, the state fined them $10,000. Okay, so yeah, they'll bend over backwards for the industry.
Now, the argument is sometimes made that these privatized, these detention, for-profit detention companies save money, and that's why it's good to have them. Can you say something about that, the extent to which that's true and the extent to which that's not true?
Right. Well, there's always been the apples and orange issue. That, well, these facilities don't really match those facilities, so they have to make adjustments this way or that way. And a lot of times, you know, you're weighing different factors associated with the management of inmates and stuff. So it's very hard to make a clear determination on whether they're saving money or not. It's a sorry state of affairs to, operate on the, well, we can save money on the backs of our employees basically by not paying them, not giving them wages, and also in the lack of care and treatment of the inmates. So that's a hard question to answer.
Now, talking about lack of care and medical care primarily of inmates, how is that addressed by these detention facilities?
Well, let's go to the immigrant issue, immigrant detention, because I think that one has been pretty much in the news a lot related to the lack of care with the immigrant detainees.
For example, particularly in the sense of covering up certain health issues as opposed to
well, one of the problems is they try to minimize what's going on with the inmate. If they be complaining, they'll give them Tylenol or an aspirin. To the point that they ignore major medical issues. There's been a number of inmates that have died, I shouldn't call them inmates, detainees that have died in these federal detention facilities for lack of medical care. And it's a cost issue. And then what they did in Elizabeth, New Jersey, was they tried working with ICE even, the folks in the government who are supposed to oversee this.
That's Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
Right, right. Was to actually try to ship the inmate out, have them, they were actually talking about deporting him so that he would no longer be the problem of this agency or this company and just send them back to the country he was from. But he died before they got to do that.